So people are coming back. You never expect as many people to come back as left in the first place. The law of entropy applies to seminars on Zoom.
The law of people who couldn't get up at 9 AM on Sunday and showed up the second half.
Yeah.
Going for the concert and saying we'll skip the support and just turn up at the interval.
Okay, so just got a minute, and I think we've still got a respectable number of people, and we've got with 30, just over 30 last time, 24 now. Oh well, we're having a comeback. It might still work. Okay, so let's have a look. We're going right, so 12 o'clock, so I'll just make a start. All right. Okay, I assume that people have got their microphones on now, and they're listening, they're loudspeakers. And so welcome back to the second part of the seminar. And this one's entitled Chess, Mathematics and Games. And this session is about strategy games in the primary classroom. And in particular, we're going to be looking at implementing games on a relatively new software platform called the Logiqboard. So I'm going to now be showing you this on this kind of board, which is called Padlet, which you probably have come across previously. And it just enables us to see exactly what is being discussed, what's being presented. So we're on to the second session now. I'm John Foley from ChessPlus. Okay, so just to recap, we had a look at basic mathematics for primary school, and one of the exercises we did was to classify chess pieces. This is an exercise which there was a lot of imagination and creativity, and that was exactly what we wanted. And of course, dealing with children, you can encourage them to think outside the box, as it were. And one way you could kind of deal with that when you're joining this is I've now invoked the Logiqboard, and so this comprises this 8x8 board. On the one side, we've got pieces that we can add to the board. On the other side, we've got some symbols that we can add to the board. So if I wanted to put all the, let's say, sliding pieces in one part of the board and all the jumping pieces in another part, I think I would probably do it like this. So there are all these sliders, and here are all the jumpers. And we had other categories as well. We could put the long distance pieces and the short distance pieces together as well. And I think, and these would be our long distance pieces. So I think this sort of thing is helpful if you wanted to talk through very quickly and show which pieces that you're talking about. So this is an instance of using the Logiqboard. There's a question about the Padlet. Yes, I actually put a link to the Padlet into the chat. So if you look up, I'll put it in again. Whoops, I'll put it in again. So Padlet there, so you can comment on it as you wish. So yeah, you can actually comment on the Padlet itself by clicking on the section that says add comment, and we can add comments as we go. Okay, so what do we mean by strategy games? Well, with I think we're familiar, of course, with games like chess, and a game like chess is a game in which the it's a strategy game in the sense that, first of all, there's no luck involved in the game. It's not a game of dice. It's not a game of chance, not with cards. It's not drawing something out of a box or a bag. It's just a game of one person pitting their wits against another person. It's a game in which you have to think things through. You cannot rely upon luck. If you win one of these games, it's usually because you've managed to outthink your opponent, or you know something about the patterns and the structures that your opponent doesn't know. And so that's the first element of a game. And the second aspect of a game is a strategy game. What distinguishes a strategy game is that it's a game in which your move affects your opponent's move, and their move affects your move. So there's a kind of interference that's going on. So you'd like to achieve your objectives, and your opponent is trying to stop you from achieving your objectives, whilst at the same time trying to achieve their objectives. So this interactive aspect is what characterizes strategy games. I mean, you can have a kind of let's say a mutual puzzle where you each try and solve a puzzle within a certain period of time, but that's not a game. For a game, something that you do has to affect your opponent, and vice versa. So that's the thing about strategy games. And strategy games are fundamental in so many aspects of our lives. And now there's a project that is underway with the European Union, funded by Erasmus Plus. It's been going on actually since 2019. And this project is one in which we have been, it's a multinational project, Portugal, England, Austria, and briefly France. And the thing is that we were able to get funding, first of all, to select the appropriate games, and then to test games in the classroom with children across Europe, and also to assess how the children are able to formulate strategies in playing these games. And there's now a paper which has been written on this research, and it's interesting in that it does indicate that children who have in a more gamey environment are able to apply or transfer their skills to some extent into a mathematics learning framework. So that is to say, certain aspects of problem solving are transported across. So that's encouraging. And so what games, first of all, what games are we looking at? Well, we identified 21 games. We invented 2 or 3 games here ourselves. Some of them are classic games. That is to say, they've been around for, let's say, 100 years or more. But a very large number of them are only invented in the last 20 years or so. So this it's a new development, really. These games, what's going on? It's something that's quite exciting. Now, the games that we've selected are games that operate on a 8x8 board. When some of the games were devised, they were actually devised perhaps for different sized board, like 7x7 or 9x9 or 10x10 or whatever. Also, some of these games were originally designed for hexagonal boards. Some games play out particularly well on hexagonal boards. But we have adapted the games so that they operate reasonably within an 8x8 framework. What this means is that they are playable within classrooms which have got chessboards, because actually you're rather constrained in playing strategy games that I mean, in a classroom, you don't have many playing boards, and chessboards are quite common, relatively speaking. And so these games will operate on a chessboard. So if you have chessboards, you can play chess, but you can also play many of these other games. And the question is, well, why would you want to do that? Why not just stick to chess? And the answer is that chess is a wonderful game, and it's perhaps the ultimate game. It's got a lot of features which make it very special. The individual characters of the pieces, the tactile nature, the history, the tradition, the design, the complexity of the rules, they all make it a game which is regarded very much as a kind of, I suppose, the leading game in the world in terms of strategy games. There is the game of Go, but I'll come on to that. On the other hand, there is an issue about games in schools, which is that many teachers are not chess players, and they're not confident to play chess. They're not confident to introduce children to some of the wonderful aspects of chess. So for that reason, there have been projects in various countries to introduce games which are less complicated than chess, but which provide arguably the same or perhaps even better educational benefits. That is because they're more understandable by the teachers. And the teachers are key to getting these games implemented, because unless the teacher wants to play the game and is confident about the game, then it's not going to happen. So instead of having to rely upon kind of external chess tutors to come in, we're looking here at, if you like, a revolution, so that if games are recognized in schools as having educational value, then here would be a set of games that would be very suitable for playing within the classroom. Any questions so far? All quiet on the Western Front. Is everybody asleep?
No, we are not asleep.
Oh no, somebody's awake. Very good. Very good. All right. So, I thought I'm talking to myself. I'm thinking going mad. Right. Okay. So look. So now, so what sort of games are we looking at here? Well, here's one form of categorization, and so I've here divided the games into two general categories. One are placement games and one are movement games. By a placement game, what I mean are games in which you put a piece down and it stays down in that spot and you don't have to move it again. And it doesn't, generally speaking, get captured or perform any captures. And so about half the games we've got are these placement games. The other category of games are games in which you have pieces that move. Chess is an example of a game in which pieces move, and drafts is a game in which pieces move. So that's the first category you've got. And then within placement games, you've got one big category called territory games. You have to control as much territory as possible. We'll go on and have a look in a little bit more detail at cats and dogs shortly. I mentioned Go. We do have Go, but the full game of Go on a 19x19 grid is, of course, the leading game in China, Korea, Japan, and it's recognized as having perhaps even greater complexity than chess. However, that complexity does not lend itself to educational usage very easily, unless we produce a subset of Go, which is the game called Atari. Atari is the term within the game of Go in which you have captured a piece or surrounded a piece that's then captured. So we are advocating for Go, but a somewhat simplified version of it. And of course, for any of these games, if you were to master the game, you may wish to go on and play the game more intensively in its full format, and that's entirely possible. I'll just mention some of these are just names for you, so but in terms of categories, so some games are about, you know, how much territory on the board can you cover. Others are somewhat to do here. We divide up the board into different sections, and then you have to try and maximize the number of sections that you control. So when you divide up a board into sections, that's called tessellation. So we'll call those tessellation games. Then we have connection games. A connection game, you would be familiar with the game of Connect 4. And that's a game where I think you can drop plastic pieces into a frame and try and produce 4 in a row, something like this. And that's a very classic game. It predates its becoming a kind of proprietary game of a particular games manufacturer. And there are some other miscellaneous games which are difficult to categorize in this way. Reversi, or Othello in its proprietary implementation, is a game in which there has some elements of kind of controlling territory and elements of connectivity. So some of these games kind of borrow themes or share themes with other games. So to some extent, once you start getting into these games, then you start to get, if you like, get good at all of them. And some of these games are actually played in the World or Mind Sports Olympiad, and these events challenge people to think. And what we're looking at here are fairly, let's say, straightforward, slightly simpler versions of these games. An example of somebody who was a kind of one of the most successful players in the Mind Sports Olympiad was Demis Hassabis, who went on to found DeepMind, the artificial intelligence company that Google subsequently bought out and has made the chief agent of their own artificial intelligence project. So I would argue that playing these games is all part of developing the, let's say, cognitive mindset to problem solve. Okay, so just moving on. So we've looked at sort of placement games. Now, in terms of movement games, then there are a lot of games that are, if you can play chess, then you'd feel fairly comfortable at least understanding what moves are, even if you haven't got the strategy. So we've got, I think I'll show you Damaths very shortly, and after Cats and Dogs, and then the game of Rook Duel, I will let Rita Atkins show you that game. So these are games where you can, I think, comfortably teach these games. They're not very difficult to teach. Very many of these games are very simple sets of rules, extremely simple, but actually trying to win the game is challenging. That's what makes them special. None of these games are trivial. NIM-like games are very, very special categories. So of all the games we've discussed, which are strategy games, there is a large subset of strategy games called, well, they're mathematical games, and a large proportion of those are what's called coming from combinatorial game theory, CGT, and that itself derives from a book that was written by John Conway, Guy in Berlekamp, and it is a kind of a classic of mathematics, and they're recognizing that a game is an important part of a branch of mathematics. But within that, there's a particular category of games called NIM games, which only dates back to 1901. So I think that makes it fairly classical. And they are absolutely baffling to play unless you know the trick, how to win these games. And then finally, there are games which are a game in which you kind of make two moves in a way. You make your piece move, and then there's an extension to that piece move. So I think that's these like linked move games, and these are really fascinating games as well. So there's a whole category of these games. Okay, so each of these games has got its own special features, which makes it interesting. None of them take too long, because we wouldn't want games that in order to master them, you need to take a huge amount of time. Now, to give you a kind of very brief overview of some of the rules in these games, I'm going to call up these little slide reminders of how they would work. So Slime Trail. This is a game in which it's called an impartial game in the sense that you're sharing the same piece. So this piece here, this little blue piece, you've got two players starting. Player number one wants to bring the piece to their corner, and player number two wants to bring the piece to their corner. And the thing is, you can't go on the same square twice. So once you've been on the square, you have to leave a little mark. And then the next square, leave a little mark. So as a result, this kind of set of marks or trail builds up, hence the term slime trail, and the reference to the snail. And this is a very popular game. This game proved its merit in the National Mathematical Games competition in Portugal, where it has been run for many years. And in Portugal, they have tested out all of these games and are able to establish which games work in a school environment, which games do not work in a school environment. I would hope that other countries in Europe would also be implementing mathematical games. By the way, a mathematical games tournament looks exactly like a chess tournament. There's pairings, there's arbiters, there's children playing one-on-one, the game on a 8x8 board. I mean, it looks identical, I have to say. It just so happens the game they're playing is a bit different. Okay, so I wanted to, let's say, try this game, Cats and Dogs, because this is apparently the most popular game that was played in that championship. By the way, the organizations involved in the Erasmus Plus project was Lulish from Lulish is mathematical games specialists who are belonging to the mathematics department of University of Lisbon. And ChessPlus based in London, and Haus der Mathematik in Vienna. So it is the institution in Vienna responsible for the teaching of mathematics in Austria. And they very much got on board with this. And the thing about Cats and Dogs, this is one of the games that we studied the children playing. And what we were studying in particular was how they formulate strategy. So it's all very well knowing the rules of a game, but the critical thing for any game is how do you win? You know, given the rules, how do you win? So a lot of people, they say, oh, I know how to play chess, but I know, or rather they correct themselves, I know how to move the pieces. Well, you know, moving the pieces is one thing, but getting checkmate is something a little bit different. So it's the same for all of these games. And then, so if you want to study the process by which children can formulate a plan, develop a strategy, you need to work with very simple games. Hence, these games will be important in the study of learning, of problem solving. Okay, so and so on. So we've got these kind of little brief descriptors, and actually we gave these out at the various events that we go to, these cards. So, oh, what's going on here? So for example, on this 8x8 project I'm discussing with you, so there was let's say there was some big what are we looking at here? Some big, yeah. So we went, for example, the Spielfest in Vienna. I don't know, not coming up large, but we would have these little cards. You probably see them there on the table, so that people would have the rules available, so they knew how to play the games. That's when you're doing it. That's when you're doing it. That's when you're doing it physically. Okay. So the other way of doing it physically, of course, if you want to, is use a customized board. So this is a board which is used, that's cats and dogs in Portuguese, and it's the board you would use in playing the game. It's also suitable for children who have got problems with their vision, and blind children are able to play on this board. Okay, so let's now look at this game, Cats and Dogs, on the Logiqboard. So the Logiqboard is an interactive, shareable chessboard on which we can play all sorts of different games, and we can play cats and dogs on this board. So, but just before doing that, and generated from the Logiqboard, I just want to discuss a little bit of strategy. What are the rules? What are the rules of cats and dogs? So we just have to remind ourselves, one player has the cats and the other player has the dogs. So cats and dogs cannot be next to each other laterally. So you cannot have a green and a blue, or you can't have two of the opposite armies sitting next to each other, but they can touch diagonally. So we're ruling out any orthogonal connection, but we're permitting a diagonal connection. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning of the game, we put one of the pieces in the center, and the other player has to play a piece outside of the center. Otherwise, they could just copy what the other person does. So we've broken the symmetry there. So that's the start of the game. And then the players alternately place a piece on the board anywhere they wish, subject to the rule that they mustn't put their piece next to one of their opponent's pieces. And the winner is the last player who placed the piece on the board. So that seems to be fairly straightforward, you would have thought. Okay, let's have a look. Come on, there. What am I doing? So we're going to look at this one here. So I'm just, for the purposes of explaining the strategy of cats and dogs, let's say I put a blue piece, I put a piece on B6 and I put a piece on D6, then that means that my opponent cannot put their piece on any of the squares marked with an X. So that is to say, I have managed to rule out something like 7 squares. Now, yeah, so I've ruled out 7 squares. So my opponent cannot place their piece on one of these others. So if I'm pushing my opponent away and I'm controlling those squares, in that sense, I've got more territory than my opponent's. Why I'm calling this as a territory game. Okay, but it was that the best that lateral placing of the pieces, the optimum, because we had it on b6 and d6, but now perhaps we should have it on b6 and d5. So what this gives us is, if we add this up, one extra square that we are controlling. Instead of having 7, we have now got 8. And the reason for that, of course, is that by shifting down this blue from d6 to d5, what we have done is we've allowed the 2 and the 5, which are occupying the same square before, to be separated out. So we've generated one extra square. So as a very simple observation, one could say the strategy in this game, as part of the layout of your pieces, if you have any freedom to do so, you wouldn't want to put them on the same line as the previous piece, because you can generate a bit more control of the space by displacing it by a knight. Now you might want to go and investigate alternative patterns. What is the most productive way of doing that? Okay, so let's press on. So this is our opening position in a game of cats and dogs, and the opponent now has to place their piece anywhere on the board, but outside of the center, and so it continues. Okay, so let's now go on to the next. So let's say they've been playing for a while. They've played 18 moves each. 18 moves. What does anybody like to say? Let's say blue is moving next. We call it cats and dogs because that's, of course, children like to have the names for animals, but for these purposes we can just call it blue and orange, as we are adults and thinking in a very abstract way. What squares can blue move to? What squares are available to blue?
H4. Oh,
H4, H4, excellent. Yeah,
no.
yeah, blue, except there's an orange.
Oh, no, yeah, no, can't.
Yeah, can't go there, I'm afraid.
So then H6.
H6, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And also H5, yeah. So one way of doing this game, when you're playing this game, you've got to kind of visualize not just the pieces, but where the pieces cannot go. So what I would say here is like what we were doing there. So, well, okay, well, let's ooh, come on. Yeah, so what you do, you'd say, well, look, actually, if you look carefully, no piece can go any of the squares marked with an X, because all of the squares marked with an X are exactly between an orange and a blue. These are all in between orange and blue. So no piece can go to any there. So the only segment that is left on the board is this segment here, H4 to H6, like this. And just to clarify that. So really, when you look at the board like this, your focus should really now just be on the final 3 squares. And so if you're blue, you can certainly rule out already H4. And you've got a choice of H5 and H6. Which one is there anything to choose between H5 and H6?
H5.
Why would you say H5, Kea?
Because then the orange will not be able to come on H4 and H6 as it is against the rule. It cannot be adjacent to the blue.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, that's right. Because blue can play on h5 or h6, but if blue plays on h6, what it does prevent orange from playing on h5, but it doesn't prevent orange from playing on h4. So if blue plays h6 and orange plays on h4, then there's no more moves left possible in the game. There'll be an X in here, as it were. And therefore, the last player to move will have been orange. So orange wins the game. So if blue makes the wrong choice, they lose. But I think it would require just a moment's thought to realize that the best square here would be h5. But again, what it illustrates is that when you play a move here, it's not just kind of what's possible, but it's what would my opponent do? So yes, I could play to any of the to these top two green squares, but one of them wins and one of them loses, and that's the important thing to know. What would your opponent do? So that's an example of a very simple game, but it's quite challenging if you want to play, like all of these games. If you want to play them well, they are quite challenging. So I don't want to say anything else about that game. Okay, so I thought it might now be appropriate that we perhaps try to play this game. Now, how would you do that? Well, I'm going to go back to the to this Logiqboard idea, and where was I? My Logiqboard over here. I think I had one. So I'm going to open up the board again. Ask me for my name. I'm going to call myself John for these purposes. And all right, there's a menu up here, top left hand side. And on the menu, I've got, okay, I could play chess on here, but that's not really what we're here for today. We're here for the kind of the new generation of games. Chess will always be there. I mean, because chess is always going to be the primary game, but there are lots of other games as well that we want to do. Okay, so chess mini games. I think we know about chess mini games. So, for example, let's say the pawns game is a familiar game. So I can call up this game now, and we can immediately. I think you all know the rules of the pawns game, but basically, you need to get a pawn to the opposite side of the board, and the pawns play as in chess. So it's a very I say straightforward, simple game. You capture as in chess, and it's I'm not going to play the most. I don't know. I'm going to play let's say a losing move here. There we go. And now I'm going to push through here. And I think white is going to win because black won't be able to stop it. There we go. And white wins. So that's an example of a chess mini game. That is to say, it's a game based upon the rules of chess, but it's a subset of those rules, or it's a subset of the pieces. In the pawn game, it is a subset of the pieces that we're looking at. And so these are the familiar games. Now, actually, this one would be interesting. Here we have a four-player game, where each player is controlling a different piece. And the aim of the game is to capture the knight. So I think this one lends itself quite well to multiplayer example online. So what I'm going to do, on top right here, I've got a little link here. I'm going to copy this link. I'm going to post it into the chat, and I'm hoping to get 3 other people. I'm going to be the knight, and you're going to have 3 3 people who come onto the board, I would be grateful. I will illustrate this little game here. My Kingdom Chaos has joined the board, right? That's one person. Who else would like to join the board? Let's see here. We got Chaos. Anybody else? Come on. Lena. Oh, we got too many now. I'll just take the top 3. So Lena and Kalal. Silal. Right. Okay. So you're the 3. Okay. So so just double check on the rules here. The 4 players, each controlling 1 piece. The 3 kings cooperate. This is going to be a hard bit. Cooperate. Oh, hold on. I'm not supposed to move yet. Yeah. Against the knight. The aim of the kings is to capture the knight. The knight seeks to escape. Okay. By the way, you're not allowed to be checked from the knight. Otherwise, you lose. Right. Okay. So who's playing which of these? Who's going to be green? Who's going to be green on this board? Keo, can you be green?
Yes.
All right, you're green. Salal, are you? Can you be blue?
Yes, I'm blue.
Okay, and Metai, can you be red? Metai? Come in, Metai. Are you there? Are you just signaling via moving the king? Yes. Okay, good man. Right. Okay, so oh, well, so let's say green moves first. Yeah, green moves first. So we'll do green, blue, red. No, actually, RGB. Sorry, RGB is standard colors in RGB. So red goes first, then green, then blue. This is a bit confusing. So can I just swap these 2 things around? We have red. No, hold on. I'm going to have red, then I'm going to have green, and then I'm going to have blue. Right. Okay, red going first then. Who's red? Right, good. Now green. Now blue.
I'm not able to move.
Come on, blue, KO. Yeah. Right. Hold on. Go back, red. Go back, red. Go back.
Give John a chance, please.
Come on. Right. No, blue, go back. Wait your turn. Look. Do you understand a game? You alternate moves. This is fundamental stuff. This is the very first thing we do in games lessons, right? Right now, thank you very much. The knight's got a chance, yeah. So red now, green, and blue. Blue? Yeah, blue. All right, okay. Okay, I'm just going to come here now to F5. Red. Oh, blue, green. R, B, G, R. Slightly out of sequence, but green to move. All right, green's taking no chances, I see. I'm coming over here now. You know, you can talk to each other because otherwise, yeah. Ta-da! I've won the game. Blue has walked into a capture, I'm afraid. Thank goodness for that. You know, saves me from having to stretch it out for an hour. Okay, so anyway, I think you get a general idea. So on this board, you can share the link and then you can play one of these games. This game is a chess mini game, of which there are, you know, a lot, but here are some.
Tell me, please, given I start the board, how can I generate the link?
If you start the board, you generate the link. On the top right-hand side, there's a button.
Okay.
And on that gives you a unique URL for that particular board. So that is to say, whoever clicks on that link will join the board with you. So,
Okay.
yeah. And then you have to
Or
be
you can also just copy and paste the link of the board. Sorry to butt in, John. The actual URL of the board is the link. So that's the other way to do it.
Yeah, it's the URL of the board up as well. LDLOKD_DHG. Or just take the link. Yeah. Okay, so so this enables you to play against other people. And most of these games are two-sided games, but each side could be a pair of people, for example, in that sense. But this is one of the rare games where it's potentially a multiplayer game. Okay, this is why with the kings are in different colors. How do you change the color of a king? Well, you have a palette here. So this is green at the moment. If I could change it to blue, I could change it to orange and so on, using the color palette on the right-hand side. Okay, actually, anyway, this is leaving the world of chess far behind us now. We'll move on to games of a different nature. So strategy games. Okay, so we've got a bunch of strategy games here. So this is it's a large subset of the strategy games which are in the 8x8 project, because not all of them lend themselves to being strategy games. So how we're going to do this is I'm going to go through the game called Cats and Dogs, and we're gonna talk about that game and play it, and then we're going to go through the game called Sliding Rooks, which Rita will take you through, which is a NIM game. Okay, so this is a territory game. Now, instead of me boring you all with my standard of play, what we're going to do is give you an opportunity to break up into groups, and then within your group to organize that you could play against another individual within the group, or you can decide to play as a pair. So I'm just going to see how many people we got here with us at the moment. 24. So if for example, if I had 6 groups, that's on average 4 people per group. And if I give you, let's say, 15 minutes or so to get to grips with this game called Cats and Dogs. Does anybody not know the rule for Cats and Dogs? The rules are, in any case, in here in the little in the notepad attached to the board. So you cannot be up, down, right, left of your opponent's piece, or you cannot be orthogonally adjacent, as we say. You can be diagonally adjacent. Okay, and so play the game and see if you can come up with any strategy ideas for this game.
John, one more question to that.
Yes.
Given we go to the breakout room, what is the next step? We start, each of us starts the board with your link.
Yeah,
Is
what I
that-
suggest you do, because in your group there'll be 3 or 4 people. Oh,
Okay.
Rita, were you going to make a suggestion? I see you're shaking your head. You're on mute.
Me?
No,
It's
sorry.
it's me.
Rita.
It's
Yeah.
not the same link you want to play on, because if everybody plays on the same link, then you all accessing the same board.
Yeah.
So you just want to one of you in the breakout room should create the board, and
Yeah.
then share the link of that board with the others in the breakout room.
And he's sharing exclusively in the breakout room.
Yes,
Is that what
yes.
you are saying? Okay.
So everybody in the breakout room will see
Yeah.
the same board, but only people in that breakout room will use that board.
Okay.
Yeah, so the thing is, if there's 3, I mean, we're going to just randomly pair you, right? So if there's 3 of you, you can have kind of 2 against 1. If there's 4 of you, you can decide 2 lots of 1 versus 1, or it could be 2 versus 2. So we leave it up to you. But then you'll have to talk to each other, you know, which is not a bad thing to do today. Okay, so I'm going to break you up into 4 groups now. Let's have a look. Breakout rooms, yeah. And we'll see you in about 15 minutes. We'll give you a notice. So have people started to go into groups? I'm going to stop my sharing now. Stop sharing. Yeah, so Victor is in here. Are we? But this is not the breakout. Have some people not been?
There are quite a few people who are unassigned, John. You haven't assigned everybody.
I thought I was.
Look at your breakout rooms. There are about 10 people unassigned.
Oh, really? Okay, can you help me with that? Because assigned to. All right.
You just go to each one and assign them to a room. Or
yeah. Oh, I see. All right. Okay. I have to do it by hand. I thought we'd do it automatically. Oh, well, never mind.
or if you give me, well, it's better now if you do it yourself. Otherwise, you get
Yeah.
confused.
Okay. 3. All right. So room 4. Victor to room.
There's nobody in room 3.
There's nobody in room 3. Or maybe we leave it that way.
Okay.
For the moment.
There's only one person in room 6, so you might want to add someone else there.
Yeah, do that.
That's good. And you still have 3 people unassigned.
Yeah. Hi. Right. Room 6. We need to put a few more people in there. So yeah, we're getting there. Plus sign.